What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Talkative. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, on this Tuesday afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining again and listening to another episode of the show once again. This is episode 15, so we're 5 episodes away from 20 total episodes that I've done for this show, so it's pretty exciting. Minor milestone on paper, but a big milestone for me personally in my heart. Because as you guys know, when you start off, growth is going to be stagnant. But as you keep it going, as you keep your consistency on top, and you're growing gradually, months by even years, you're noticing all the progress and all the success. That's what's most important, no matter what. And if you're having fun at the end of the day. So, broken record at this point, but thank you for everyone who takes the time to listen to at least, it doesn't even matter, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, if not an entire episode of the show. I greatly appreciate it. And like I said, like recording these episodes, hopping on here, turning on the mic, turning on my headphones, turning on the voice recorder is always a fun time for me. So it's been a journey to say the least, but we're back. And a few things, just to give a little bit of the agenda for the next coming week, and or weeks, I should say. I was going to discuss mainly just disability topics for this week because I found two very good articles from this newsletter that has anything to do with disabilities, any articles, any stories, any news, anything disability related. I was going to discuss two articles from that same newsletter or news blog, but the second article is it goes in depth about a lot of good stories and a good perspective from a mother's point of view of raising and dealing with a child who has very severe autism. So I was going to take more time to take more notes on that article and really read more into it, but it would have took me longer to continue to take more notes this week and then record again. So for time's sake and for schedule's sake, I'm leaving that article. We're going to talk that article next week. And this week, we're going to talk about one of the articles that I found and reviewing WrestleMania 38, which just happened this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So that's what we got on schedule for today, for this week, and next week. So to start, I was going through and I found this very interesting newsletter that covers anything disabilities. If you guys, everything I'm going to be talking about within this episode and the next episode comes from disabilityscoop.com. So they are a newsletter that writes any articles on news regarding people with disabilities, from autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, anything of that sorts. So I read into them and I found two very good articles that really caught my attention, really caught my eye regarding two important topics. And one of them was feds seeking to improve airline accessibility within the restrooms, or like the actual places or lavatories where people have to go to do their business and go to the restroom. So the article entails that the U.S. Department of Transportation recently proposed a rule requiring that all single-aisle aircraft, 125 seats or more seats, have at least one accessible lavatory. Now, this is huge. This is huge because, if you've ever been on a plane before, or if you've been on a very lengthy and long flight, you guys know that when it comes to public transportation, whether it's through buses or, airlines and airplanes or any airline transportation, you guys know that going to the bathroom is not an easy task, especially for someone who is wheelchair bound or someone who has a current disability, whether it's physical, any muscle deficiencies, anything that limits their overall mobility or ability to maneuver around. It makes going to the bathroom really difficult. So there's a rule that the U.S. Department of Transportation are finally requiring and imposing or putting into place, I should say, is very good and very important for everyone who is taking flights, long distance flights, and really don't have the ability to maneuver as much as other people do when it comes to using the bathroom. So there are a couple of quotes that I took from the article and a couple of sayings that I took from the article that I really wanted to emphasize with this topic. So the restrooms would need to be large enough. So this is after the rule is imposed to have larger lavatories within airplanes. They need to be large enough for a passenger with a disability to approach, enter, and maneuver all of the other facilities. So obviously, when this rule comes into play, a lot of the engineers, a lot of the construction workers, a lot of the people that do the architecture for these airplanes and build these planes are going to have to think outside the box to make these lavatories and overall restrooms a lot larger than what they are, so that the accessibility factor is there for anyone who needs to use the restroom and is wheelchair bound or has a physical disability. So that's great, and that's a that's something that should always be prioritized no matter what. So the fact that these departments of transportations are finally taking a look at this and finally, putting confirmation in and saying that they're working on it allows for more diversity and minimal discrimination as to how they mention here in the article as well. Their main goal is to try to be more inclusive, and I mentioned this word inclusive a lot of times throughout the show, and limit discrimination and let it be known that if you're in an airplane or if you're in any form of transportation, that even if you have a disability, that you are welcome to, you know, get into the transportation and feel comfortable no matter what, because we have your back. So these, that's what we want to hope, that these companies and large administrations, large corporations really prioritize that and put emphasis on that, that we have your back when it comes to, a person who has a disability. So this is all good news, man, because I'm telling you, I mean, my situation comes a little different, but from what I've heard, from what I've seen, public transportation bathrooms are not the best. So this is fantastic news. Also, I'm just going to read a couple of notes that I took out of this article and touch base on that as well. Accessible restrooms are only mandated on planes with more than one aisle, but federal notes note that the overwhelming majority of domestic flights, including those going across the country, like I said, long-hour flights, are flown on single-aisle aircraft. This leaves people with disabilities to avoid flying or to resort to dehydrating themselves, use adult diapers or caterers, pretty much having to sacrifice their own needs because they can't really use the bathrooms that are available right now. And obviously that's a big problem. That's not healthy. You can't really force yourself not to drink water, or because you know that eventually a couple of minutes to like a couple of hours later you're gonna have to want to go to the bathroom, but you know that the whole situation is not ideal or accessible to you, so you're forced to want to dehydrate and refuse to drink more liquids while you're on the plane. And that's not a very good thing. That's not healthy. And people who are disabled shouldn't have to resort to such solution because they don't want to go to the bathroom. So the fact that they're taking this into mind is very important. Who knows, maybe down the line, public buses, city buses, even trains will allow to have a lot more accessibility, not just in the bathroom department side of things, but not just in the lavatories, but the overall, space and environment for trains and public city buses. More accessibility. Like a lot of public transportation companies and services like Nice, Able Ride, Accessoride, they have it down packed when it comes to just, having more inclusivity and accessibility with the ramps, and just having chair locks for anyone who's wheelchair bound to make sure their chair is secured, and that they're able to just, go to wherever they want to go without dealing with the hassle of not being in an accessible environment. So hopefully down the line, MTA or any of the city buses, companies that handle that part of transportation, look at this and they say, you know what, we should try to make moves as well, because it's important. It's important to have every group of people in mind as a priority no matter what. So this is all great news. I just want to. Oh, this is a very important. This is very important to me too. So far too often, travelers with disabilities don't have the opportunity to fly to their destinations because they can't access the lavatories on most airplanes. Which, like I mentioned, having accessibility on public transportation is important because people want to travel. People want to go places. People want to, just get out their comfort zone, even if it's just for general purposes like going to work, going to school. You don't want to be stuck. You don't want to be isolated and not do those things and not keep your life going because of this roadblock that can easily be fixed with due time. So, like I said, all of this is important when it comes to just, allowing people to live their life, disability or not. Most airplanes, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, I'm probably butchering that as well, Pete Buttigieg, this rule would make airplane lavatories more accessible for passengers with disabilities and bring us one step closer to the day when air travel is possible for everyone. So again, extremely crucial, very important, and this is very exciting when it comes to people who do daily travels and take daily flights and have a disability. So this is all phenomenal news and all phenomenal advancements when it comes to these departments. But the only downside is I say in due time, right? And I put emphasis into that statement because this is going to take a long time to really, really get done and put into fruition because these requirements would have to apply to aircraft that are ordered 18 years after the rule takes effect. Now, at first glance, when I read this, I've read 18 years, but that's a long time. Too long, in fact, because we don't know we don't know how the infrastructure and the overall building and architecture and development of these planes. We don't know how these planes are going to look like in the next 18 years. What if something comes up in terms of just overall production and building and architecture that won't allow this rule to come into fruition to making the lavatories and the restrooms big enough? Because I feel like in 18 years, anything can happen in the form of, transportation development and just how advanced these vehicles are going to be and these airplanes are going to be in due time. So hopefully, by the time 18 years after an aircraft is ordered, hopefully nothing would come into effect when it comes to making larger lavatories, because that's a very long time. I mean, 18 to 20 years until the rule takes effect. And that's what I ask myself, why is this going to take extremely long? And that is due to a result of a 2016 agreement between disability organizations, the Association of Flight Attendants, and Airbus and Airlines. So, because of this agreement that took place in 2016, this is why this rule won't really, come into play 18 years after aircraft have been ordered, after the rule takes place. So, like I said, it all takes a factor in, production, architecture, if these planes are going to change their overall technology, computing power, overall design. We don't know what could happen in the next 18 years, so it's going to be interesting to see how this story develops in due time, or in time as we go. But just to wrap up on this segment, I have two other major points. So overall, more of the story to wrap it up as of now. This is very crucial and this is very good news. This is all around, this is positive. Positive all around. Because that means that for me, if I ever want to take a flight, because with me, I am wheelchair bound. So if I ever want to take a flight in the future, and by then, like I said, my situation's a little different. But take this as like a general scenario, right? Like imagine, right? Okay, so if my bathroom situation was different, I'm like, okay, I want to take my own flight, but I don't want to deal with the hassle of having to, hold or not drink any liquids, not consume any liquids, because I know that my comfort and that the bathrooms that are available right now in these planes are not accessible for me. I'm not gonna have that thought as soon as this rule goes to fruition, and that's fantastic. I can have my flight, or anyone who is wheelchair bound or has a physical disability can have their flights at peace because they know that they have a safe space for them when it comes to using the bathroom and handling their business. They know that they don't have to worry about tight spaces. They know that they don't have to worry about unreachable areas or whatever the case may be. So this is great. This is great all around. And like I said, hopefully other transportation companies and transportation formats like buses and trains will follow within the public transportation department and everyone that are making this rule come into fruition for airlines and airplanes. So this is all great news all around, and then I can't wait to see how this comes into fruition down the line. And it's crazy because we read about these articles, and it's great. It's cool because as soon that's if this rule comes into play and this rule is approved, because we get to see the development of the rule later on. We get to see how they're going to modify a lot of these bathrooms, how they're going to rebuild to make these bathrooms more accessible. And that's the fun part, to see a promise come into fruition and see a promise being developed over time. So this is just one of those scenarios. So if you guys didn't know, bathrooms for airlines and airplanes are going to be made bigger and more accessible for those who are disabled and take long hour flights or just flights in general. So that was the first segment of today. That was one of two disability segments. The second one, like I said, we'll touch base on next week's episode because it's a big enough story that I can't really fit into one episode because it would be here past 40 minutes, like to an hour, if I talk about it this week. And I need to get content going because this week is going to be really tight for me personally. So I don't want to wait any longer to have an episode out for you guys. So instead, I'm leaving the second disability story for next week. But yes, public transportation is becoming more accessible, and that's always a plus. So moving on for the second and final segment for my wrestling fans out there, WrestleMania 38 just happened. It just happened this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I will be pretty much giving my overall review on what I thought of the pay-per-view. And for starts, let me just say that this WrestleMania did not have any hype at all to begin with. The hype for this year's WrestleMania was little to none. And that's because of the storylines that were developing, or the storylines that were already been developed in the past are now present, were present with this WrestleMania. As you guys know, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. How many times have we seen this match already for the past 5 to 6 years? A storyline that we're already over. We're over it. We don't want to, see another match between these two. Don't get me wrong, Brock Lesnar is a freaking monster. Roman Reigns is a phenomenal wrestler, but we're so over that storyline and that feud that seeing this match over and over and over again. I'll tell you now, I was watching that main event for night 2 of WrestleMania with literally my hand on my chin, like just resting my head in boredom because I knew what the match was going to be like. Either way, I kind of I jumped ship with talking about the main event early, but let's just off rip. So, like I said, off rip, the hype for this year's WrestleMania was little to none. There was no hype in the storylines. There was just minimal hype. So obviously that leaves people speculating: is this WrestleMania going to be good? Is this WrestleMania going to be probably one of the worst WrestleManias of all time because there's no story, there's no hype, no rivalries are being built up, pointless ass matches? And to say the least, that statement is pretty true. If it wasn't for the events that transpired, which I'm going to get to in just a moment, if it wasn't for these events or these matches, I feel like personally WrestleMania 38 would have been one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Point blank, this WrestleMania would have been one of the worst WrestleManias to this day. So, to take a break from the negatives for now, the positives, the big elephants in the room, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, after being away from the company for 6 years, finally came back and made a comeback to WWE after 6 years in this year's WrestleMania. People have read the articles, people have read the rumors, people knew that Cody had signed 10 to 14 days before, signed a full deal with WWE. All the teases, all the speculation, him obviously leaving AEW and leaving that note saying that, you know, I've parted my ways, I've done everything I could do here, I've wrestled all the people. He's also made these claims in a lot of interviews that he's pretty much wanting to wrestle everyone there, referring to AEW. He wrestled everyone he wanted to wrestle in that company, so his business there is finished, is done. He doesn't want to do anything there. He feels that he accomplished everything that he can accomplish for that company. People, obviously, in terms of the fans, the community, they're gonna receive this very differently. Some are like, okay, yes, his goals are clear. Cody's goals are already clear as day. He wants to become WWE champion at all costs. And people are on board with this. People say, okay, this makes a lot of sense. As a kid who is a fan of pro wrestling and who has followed on the concept of sports entertainment and pro wrestling, the sport of pro wrestling. I know. People don't want to consider pro wrestling as a sport, but personally, to me, in some degree, it is, because you have different fighting styles in pro wrestling that are parents, if not cousins, of other combat sports in terms of mixed martial arts, amateur wrestling, grappling, technician wrestling. So, people call it whatever you want. There's been a whole debacle about people referring wrestlers as sports entertainers or pro wrestlers. Listen, there's no argument here. There's no controversy here. Call it whatever you want. Sports entertainment, pro wrestling. I really don't care. It's a physical sport, physical form of entertainment. There you go. I mean, that's probably the best way to put it. Physical form of entertainment where people go, have their matches, have their storylines, and put on a show for those who are a fan of it. Because, I've seen people have these constant arguments. Also, that's just another thing. We're gonna get back to WrestleMania in a moment here, but I just wanted to say, let me just make this clear. Let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. If people watch Impact, let them watch Impact. If people watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, let them watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. People watch the indie scene, GCW, Ring of Honor, Progress, PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Let them enjoy the wrestling content that they want to enjoy. Be respectful of other wrestling fans' opinions and perspectives, no matter what. Do not down on somebody. Do not shit talk on somebody for liking a particular company or for liking a particular booker or chairman or CEO, president, whatever. Do not. We're not in kindergarten. This is not a kid's game. We're not arguing over toys. We're not arguing over who gets to play this game first. Enough. Like, I read into Twitter arguments all the time, and I look into Instagram comments, and it just looks childish. You have this one guy defending AEW, talking shit on this one guy that just watches WWE, and this other guy probably doesn't even go in depth or looks too intense into it. He probably watches WWE casually because he used to watch it as a kid back in the day. And you have these people picking fights or picking debates or having arguments with these other people that don't want to argue. They just want to watch what they enjoy. And that's where I'm at. Like, everything that has to do with wrestling debates or just, wrestling criticism from fans to other fans, it has to stop. It has to stop. Oh, the E-drones or the AEW marks. See, that's another thing too. It's the wrestling terminology. Mark, spark. This shouldn't apply to anyone. Let them be a fan to what attracts them. Let them be a fan. They don't have to be a mark. They don't have to be an E-drone. They don't have to be a smart. They are a fan. So be respectful of that. That's just a word out to all my pro wrestling fans and to the pro wrestling community. Let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. Anyways, back to the WrestleMania review. So Cody's back. After months, weeks of speculation, rumors. It was kind of ruined because we kind of expected him to be back. He had already signed the contract like 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks prior to the announcement or to the return. So we kind of really knew. Just a couple of things that I want to point out from this return. WWE literally did not change nothing about him. His gimmick, his nickname, his gear, his entrance theme, which is Kingdom by Downstraight, which, if you guys don't know, Kingdom is a literal song dissing. It's literally a song dissing the WWE, and they allow him to go along with it, which is, kind of weird and interesting to me. But yeah, I mean, he came back with everything, and to be honest, like I've seen a lot of Instagram wrestling pages say, this is probably the best way you could have brought Cody Rhodes back into the WWE without changing a single thing about him, and it's fantastic. I mean, honestly, it felt like I was watching Cody having a match on AEW when he was wrestling Seth, and which, by the way, amazing match. Love that match. That match from start to finish was very technical and slow at first, but as you guys know, that's how a lot of wrestling matches are. And I've been referring to the WWE the E for short, and it's actually it flows pretty well. That's how matches are in the E. They start off pretty methodical, they start off pretty slow, and then it builds up to a climax with a very intense ending over time. As long as the match runs more than like 20 minutes, and that's what this match felt. Everything from, you know, the Cody cutter, which is it's an amazing move. He hit that perfectly during that match. The Cody cutter is such an amazing move. The springboard top rope cutter was so good. Obviously Seth Rollins being a phenomenal competitor himself in his own right, just having an instant classic with Cody. And again, the right man won. I know some people disagree. Some people say, Seth could have won that match, but it was Cody's return match after 6 years of being out for the company, so you had to have Cody win that match no matter what. But nevertheless, I mean, Seth did phenomenal. I mean, just to sidetrack a little bit from WrestleMania, on the Raw WrestleMania, Seth literally came out and gave Cody Rhodes a handshake in sportsmanship, in respect of Cody. Um, I would like to see this rivalry continue, but if they just want to have it be a one-off thing, a one-match thing, that's fine. As long as both wrestlers acknowledge the accomplishments and the abilities of one another, that's good too. But yeah, phenomenal match. Cody Cutter, the homage to Dusty Rhodes with the bionic elbows, the triple crossroads to finish off the match, the suicide dives, everything. The match was phenomenal. The return was phenomenal. It was great. So that's just one major elephant in the room. The second one that I want to briefly mention and go over. So Edge versus AJ Styles. Again, let me just say, if it wasn't for Cody, this match and a few other things, this WrestleMania probably would have been a forgettable experience, to say the least. But this match right here, this rivalry, Edge versus AJ Styles, Edge being the heel and AJ being the babyface for this feud. Man, what storytelling! What storytelling! What match! It was such a good match. AJ Styles hitting a springboard, a slingshot DDT on Edge was something that I wouldn't really imagine. When it comes to innovative offense and unorthodox wrestlers and wrestlers that really try different things week in and week out, you know, Seth Rollins is another one of them. Seth Rollins, every time he has a match, you always see him hit a move that you've never seen him hit before. And for me, maybe I don't watch enough AJ Styles matches, but for me, that was the first time I saw him hit a slingshot DDT during the match, and it looked phenomenal. Overall, match was great. Edge was taking a more technical approach to it. That one crossface hold that he had on AJ Styles during that match looked really, really painful, really, really tight. But it was just great nevertheless. But the major part here is not only the Edge win the match, but Damian Priest came out during the match and caused AJ Styles the match by distracting him. Now, I saw videos, thumbnails, YouTube video titles saying that Edge or that the company were planning to have Edge be in his own faction in the next coming months. And Damian Priest seems to be the first member of this current faction that Edge is trying to build. And I kid you not, I popped so hard when I saw Damian Priest do that little pose where they went on one knee and they just looked at each other laughing maliciously. And it was just, phenomenal to see. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is going to be bad because during the promo that they cut during Monday Night Raw, I didn't get to see Raw, but from what I've read on Twitter, Damian Priest's mic skills aren't up to par when compared to someone like Edge. So this faction could obviously be overlooked, or not overlooked but overshadowed by just Edge himself because of the mic skills that Damian Priest has. See, the thing about this is Damian Priest is not teaming with just any other wrestler. Damian Priest is teaming with somebody of the caliber of Edge, who off script or on script can teach him his ways when it comes to mic skills, can teach him his own teachings to make him a better wrestler. Because Damian Priest, FKA Punishment Martinez, he's a great wrestler, but when it comes to overall presence and gimmick and mic skills, maybe there are some areas where he needs to work on. But he's on Edge's side, which you gotta take in mind here. Edge is pretty much coaching Damian Priest on throughout so I'm not even worried about that, to be honest. I'm just more curious to see how this faction develops and who's gonna be the other two members. People are saying Cody, people are saying Tommaso Ciampa. Now, try not to be biased here. If Ciampa breaks his own rule, I guess, of him not wanting to go to the main roster and shows up and joins this faction of Edge and Damian Priest, dude, I'm telling you, this is going to be something dangerous. This is going to be something dangerous and something to look forward to every week on Monday Night Raw. So I really hope they don't mess this up with this faction development for Edge. Brood 2.0, we don't know. We don't know what the name is. We don't know what the overall gimmick of this faction is going to be. But I just can't wait, dude. I just can't wait. And hopefully this is another rivalry that maybe they'll just extend on or just keep it going. Edge and AJ Styles, because they had a phenomenal match, to say the least. But a lot of people are saying, back to the whole AEW versus WWE, a lot of people are saying that this faction is just a copy of House of Black, which consists of Buddy Matthews, Malachi Black, and Brody King as of now. And I'm like, look, if anything, to be honest, the House of Black were inspired by a lot of other factions. The Brood, the Ministry of Darkness, the Shield even, just for like the overall physical presence and like three hungry, just, vile, malicious heels just trying to make a name for themselves. You could just make all those comparisons with the House of Black. But again, it all goes back to that argument. Why are you arguing comparisons? Why are you comparing a company that has not even a third of the views that WWE gets? AEW is great and all, but they're still a growing company, so stop comparing them. Like, it's just if I keep on going with this argument, this rant, we're gonna be here all day for this episode. But yeah, don't compare a company that just started 3 years ago with a company that's been around for damn near 60 plus years. It's just common sense, So a lot of people are like, this one wrestler, member of the House of Black, Brody King, is receiving a lot of heat because he tweeted on Twitter, when you get House of Black on Wish.com. Now let me just say, yes, I do agree with some of the comments. That's the boy Edge. You can't really, you can't disrespect Edge. But I was like, oh crap, Brody King taking a shot at Edge. Brody, House of Black versus the Brood. I made a joke out of it. I thought it was funny. But yeah, bro, Brody King, you're picking more than you can chew right now. We're taking a hit on Edge. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out. I was all over on Twitter last night because last night was the Raw after WrestleMania, so I saw a lot of tweets from a lot of wrestlers last night. But yeah, that was another highlight of the show. So that Cody, everything with Stone Cold and Kevin Owens was fantastic. Let me just say, um, giving Steve, giving Stone Cold that last final goodbye, that last final moment before he officially retires from wrestling. It was fantastic. I mean, like Stone Cold Steve Austin drunk damn near like I want to say like 15 cans of beer that night. He went crazy. But I feel like Kevin Owens was a good send off for Steve Austin because they kind of clashed in styles. They kind of clashed in character. Steve Austin back in the day was this rebellious brawler that wanted everything for himself, that didn't take a no for an answer, that didn't take no bullshit from anybody. Kevin Owens is kind of the same thing, especially in Ring of Honor. Kevin Owens always had his problems with Jim Cornette. And it was more like a mirror match to be honest. I know a lot of people like to compare Stone Cold and CM Punk, but Kevin Owens is actually not bad of a match either because, like I said, it's a similar story. Kevin Owens, whenever he plays the role of a heel, he's really rebellious. It's his own rule, his own play game, whatever the case may be. And he's more of a hardcore slash brawler, similar wrestling style to Stone Cold. So I feel like he was just the perfect send-off for Stone Cold Steve Austin, the perfect match. And the match itself, it wasn't the greatest match. I mean, it was a fight. To be honest, it was a Dallas Texas street fight for WrestleMania. It was fun. It was fun to see Steve Austin take some bumps for the first time in like 19 years, and actually hit his finisher, hit the stunner, and get a pinfall and a victory on his record at WrestleMania. So just seeing Steve again for the first time in 19 years was, it's always going to bring a smile to your face no matter what. So that was phenomenal as well. You had to be honest, I've said phenomenal throughout this episode a handful of times. Forgive me, I did not want to abuse the usage of that word. It's just the first word that came to mind. I apologize. That should not have really happened. Should have never happened. Ronda Rousey should have never won the Royal Rumble. I feel like the wrong person won the Royal Rumble. But yeah, I can't really give my take on that because I didn't really watch the match. Didn't really care for it. So, and that's why I feel like why this WrestleMania was not as hyped up or as received as other WrestleManias because there's a lot of matches that people didn't really care for. Ronda Rousey for Charlotte being one of them. That tag match between the New Day and Rich Holland versus Rich Holland and Sheamus. I'm not even gonna include that in this review because it that was just a clusterfuck. To be honest, that should have never been in the actual main card for the show for WrestleMania. That should have just been on the card. But yeah, for segments and matches like that, a lot of people didn't really give a crap for them. So I feel like that's where the hype for WrestleMania this year kind of died down. So yeah, I can't really give my take on that women's match because I didn't watch it. The SmackDown Women's Title match, which congratulations to Bianca Belair for becoming Women's Champion once again. I heard it was really good. I mean, some people said it was match of the night for night one. Some people said it was a really good match. I didn't get to watch it. Maybe I'll rewatch it myself to, see if I share the same opinion. But yeah, so that's for the two Women Championships matches. Like I said, not that I don't want to review these. I just either one, didn't get a chance to watch them, or two, didn't really care for them. So that's that for the women's matches for WrestleMania. Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory. This was honestly the best celebrity match of WrestleMania. You had Logan Paul and The Miz versus the Mysterios, which I didn't get to watch either, but apparently Logan Paul did very good. I again, we're all honest people with this show. In this show, I don't give a crap for Logan Paul, but kudos to him for doing good in his first WrestleMania match. which is weird from what I've seen, from what I saw. The Miz hit a skull crush finale on Logan Paul and betrayed him after the match was over. Made zero sense, but that's that. So for that match. But out of the three matches, you had Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn, which is a comical ass match. I don't watch the Jackass movies, but I heard they were really good. Wee Man coming out and fighting Sami Zayn and body slamming Sami Zayn was the highlight of that match. But to have Sami lose that match really, really just, I don't know. It stung me. It really did. I don't know why Sami Zayn had to go out with a loss to that match. Again, I don't watch Jackass, but a lot of people love Jackass and the crew. They love Johnny Knoxville. So, I mean, Johnny Knoxville, if he was like a celebrity that nobody liked, like a lot of people don't like Logan Paul, they would probably boot him off the building, but everyone likes Johnny Knoxville. So, I guess it's okay if he won, but it's Sami Zayn, you know. Sami Zayn can't be taking an L like that on WrestleMania. But nevertheless, I mean, back to Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory. This was just amazing. Amazing up until the final part where um Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon came out and decided he wanted to just wrestle Pat McAfee. It was weird. It was a weird, post match segment, post match, I guess. I feel like they could have avoided that, and they could have avoided the botched stunner that Vince McMahon and had with Stone Cold. That was also horrendous, but really funny at the same time. If you guys didn't see Mick Foley, Hardcore Legends' reaction to the stunner, um, that Mr. McMahon took on that night of WrestleMania, he was just laughing up a storm. It was funny to watch, but yeah, I feel like that was a little bit unnecessary to have Vince McMahon come out and wrestle Pat McAfee, and Pat lost. But I mean, at least Pat beat Austin Theory. Let me just say, Pat is an athlete, bro. Pat performed phenomenal in that match against Austin Theory. He did really good. When he leaped to the top rope to go for that superplex, that was just peak athleticism on his part. And the standing uppercut, the rebound uppercut that did, the European uppercut was amazing. He went for that swanton, which, by the way, phenomenal form. He missed it, but when he was going for the swanton onto Austin Theory, that form that he had on the swanton was so good. I popped for that. I was like, oh my god, what a swanton by Pat McAfee. What a form, but he missed it, unfortunately. But yeah, Pat did really good. That was phenomenal. Also, let me just say a little just honorable mention for this match. Pat McAfee's theme is Seven Nation Army. Like, oh my god, dude. They actually, dude, that song is like one of the most iconic band slash rock songs that you can find and that are out there right now. And that was his theme. Everyone was listening to it. He was just over for that one song. Pat McAfee was over with the fans and the audience because of that one song. So hearing that live was pretty fun. So that's just a little tidbit that I wanted to mention from that match. But yeah, that match was good. I mean, Austin Theory made Pat McAfee look really strong. So kudos to Austin Theory, who's also a phenomenal athlete, himself as well. But that was fun. Pat McAfee got his dream WrestleMania moment, his dream WrestleMania match and victory live. And he's also amazing on the commentators table. You can't even argue that Pat McAfee what is the most memorable and funny and amazing and enthusiastic commentators in recent memory with WWE. So, amazing stuff on that end. Really entertaining, was fun to see, and that was also great. So I think I got all the major points. I mean, okay. I guess I mentioned pretty much everything, or I tried to mention everything, if I'm not missing anything. Also, Triple H kicking off night one or night two rather by cutting a promo, his last goodbye promo, is leaving his boots and everything in the middle of the ring, and kicking off Mania by getting the fans hype and telling them, "Welcome to WrestleMania." It was great. It was great to see Triple H, legend, phenomenal superstar, phenomenal name within the actual company, phenomenal champion, everything, all the above. Just phenomenal human being as well. Sad to see him go, but legends can't last forever. So my respects to Triple H. Hopefully we can still see him in the management side of things. But as for wrestling, he is completely done for. But it was good to see his last final goodbye. Best of luck in Triple H in his future endeavors. He is the GOAT indeed. But yeah, I think apart from that, I think I've covered. Also, The Undertaker being inducted to the Hall of Fame. He came out twice, so he had the chance to make his entrance and give his final goodbyes, his final look at the fans, twice in both nights. And again, another iconic moment. Sad, but iconic moment at the same time. So, Undertaker, Triple H, thank you for what y'all have done over the past 20 plus years. We'll see you guys down the line. Who knows? Maybe Undertaker, now that he's going to be out of character, he'll be more active within the media, interviews, podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever the case would be, and could share some more wrestling knowledge and wrestling stories throughout his career. So we'll see. But yes, two legends. Pay my respects. The goats forever. Triple H and The Undertaker. But apart from that, I think I've pretty much covered or talked on a lot of the main parts for WrestleMania. And now that leads me to the main event. Um, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Now, I did mention at the start of this segment, that's the first thing I talked about was how this main event at this point is so redundant, so overdone. It's just we're tired of seeing it. We're done with this main event. But I mean, to wrap it up, put it in short terms, this WrestleMania match was the same. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, signature and finisher fest. Suplex spear, Superman punch, F5. That's it. I mean, Roman Reigns is not the undisputed Universal Champion. Has both the WWE title belt and the Universal Championship, but that match did not deliver, man. It really didn't. And apparently it was cut short. It ended a little bit earlier because Roman Reigns, I think he popped his shoulder during the match because after Brock hit the Kimura one moment during the match, his shoulder was like really like the shoulder area of his arm was really really purple and really really just bruised up, and he was yelling at Paul Heyman, "It's out, it's out, it's out." Like continuously yelling, "It's out, it's out, it's out." And unfortunately, they ended the match off with like one spear. Roman only hit one spear to Brock Lesnar to end the match, and I mean, there's that. I mean, again, there's nothing crazy, nothing monumental. It wasn't a great match. I don't know why. To be honest, I don't know why people are saying that match was the best match of all of WrestleMania 38 because it wasn't. But yeah, nothing too much to talk about for that match, to be honest. Overall, I give this WrestleMania, again, I emphasized and I made it clear that if it wasn't for some of these matches and some of these returns and some of these segments, this would have probably been one of the blandest and most boring and just crappy WrestleManias of all time. That's why I give it no less or no more than a 6.5 out of 10. It was good for what it had, for what happened. Cody, Kevin versus Steve Austin, Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory, AJ versus Edge, and Edge starting his own stable. If it wasn't for these moments, this WrestleMania would have been extremely dull. So with that being said, we just reached the 50-minute mark. So a little bit over, but that's okay. I'll leave you guys there. So this has been episode 14 of Talkative. We discuss big moves in the accessibility world when it comes to public transportation and air transportation and lavatories, and just making overall transportation more accessible, more inclusive to those who have disabilities. And I gave my actual legitimate debut review, sorry, for WrestleMania 38, which took place this last weekend. I will be seeing you guys next week, where we will discuss the second article that I found on the Disability Scoop newsletter and some other topics which I'll think of down the line. But with that being said, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me this week. You guys take care. I'll leave you guys with the disability fact of the episode on the screen. Take care.